the fuck is going on, everybody? It's your boy Sauceman X. Check it back at your niggas with another goddamn video today. But anyways, man, we're back with another NBA video with this bitch, okay? We're back with another NBA video with this bitch. And you already see this shit by the title, okay? This is obviously gonna be a series review, a mid-series review of the NBA, of the Eastern Conference Finals, okay? The Eastern Conference Finals, we already know the Toronto Raptors versus the Milwaukee Bucks, okay? Game 3. We already saw the fucking game last night, okay? We already saw the game last night. The Toronto Raptors finally fucking win Game 3 of this fucking series. Bucks are leading this series 2-1 in this shit, okay? But leading the series 2-1 in this shit. And I might as well just go ahead and give a mid-series review of what the fuck is going to go on. My projections of what I think is going to happen for the rest of the series, considering the fact that, of course, I could not necessarily accurately predict it before any of the games started. So in this fucking series, going to give a little bit of an update of how I think the series is going to go. I already did it with the fucking last series, my nigga, which was the Western Conference Finals, but that shit's already over, so there's no reason to even make a goddamn recap video of that shit, but I still did. So we're going in the Eastern Conference Finals, okay? The Eastern Conference Finals. Toronto Raptors win last night, okay? 118-112 versus the Milwaukee Bucks. We already saw that shit, okay? We basically already saw that shit. But since I didn't recap every single game of the series, I'm just going to go ahead and recap games 1 and 2 in this shit, okay? With games 1 and 2. And all I have to say about this shit, okay? All I have to say about this shit as of right now is that the Raptors should be leading the series 2-1, okay? They should have been leading the series 2-1. Before the series, I predicted the Bucks. And by the way, there's a lot of things that I was right about this series. But before the series started, I predicted the Bucks to have a 2-1 lead by Game 3. And of course, it was obviously they have a 2-1 lead. But before the series, I predicted the Raptors to win one on the road, which was going to be their only road win in my prediction, in my opinion, which was Game 2. Okay, that's what I predicted before the series started, but they lost Game 2, obviously by blowout. But Game 1 was the game that the fucking Toronto Raptors obviously should have won. So let me just go ahead and recap Game 1, because this is obviously going to be the more interesting series in this bitch. We have Game 1 of this shit, okay? We already know Game 1, fresh out the fucking gate, okay? The Toronto Raptors actually started playing really well, okay? The Toronto Raptors came out of the gate, they started playing well, great defensively, and the thing is that one thing that I was actually concerned about, kind of sort of concerned about before the series started, was Giannis Antetokounmpo. We already know this motherfucker, Giannis Antetokounmpo, had a bad fucking performance in Game 1, in the first half. This nigga had a terrible performance. He did not step up the way he needed to in the first half, but the team was still maintaining their lead, you know what I'm saying, before that shit. So we already know the first half, Kyle Lowry comes in dominating. He had 30 points. Okay, this nigga's only supposed to average like 10, 15 points per game. This nigga, Kyle Lowry, had 30 points. But in the first half, he was actually playing pretty well. Kawhi Leonard was doing his thing, and they had a decent first half lead. Okay, they had a decent first half lead. The Bucks were not showing up the way they needed to. But we already fucking know this shit. Okay, we already know this shit. In the second half is where the Bucks actually started to come alive and start coming back in the fucking game, and they literally started dominating. You had this motherfucker Brook Lopez, and this is literally what I was saying. The inconsistency, which is what I said was going to be the main problem for the Toronto Raptors this series, would be the inconsistency of their fucking bench players. And that was proven as a fact. All 3 games, my nigga. Okay, all 3 games. I'll get into Game 2 and 3 later. But all 3 fucking games, that was proven as a fact. The inconsistency of the fucking role players. Marc Gasol had a terrible fucking Game 1. Terrible Game 1. Okay, well, I don't know if he had a terrible game. I think Game 2 he had a terrible game. Everybody had a fucking terrible Game 2. But in Game 1, he did not have a legitimate performance. And you have this motherfucker who obviously we all know saved the fucking day for the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 1, which is Brook Lopez. Okay, this nigga Brook Lopez, which I was right about. This nigga dominated in Game 1. All throughout the game, he had 29 fucking points. 29 points. Completely dominating, unstoppable from 3-point range. Okay, you have this motherfucker Eric Bledsoe, which he didn't really have that legitimate game. Apparently he had a bad semifinals, and apparently he's not really playing that well. But he had and you had this motherfucker Malcolm Brogdon coming back from the injury, dropping 15 points, doing what he needs to do. Chris Middleton also making significant contributions. But you can tell offensively and defensively, they're obviously a much more cohesive team, and they're a much better put together team. While on the Toronto Raptors, you had this motherfucker Kawhi Leonard doing it all by himself. Okay, you had this motherfucker Kawhi. You had Kyle Lowry. Well, that was in Game 2. In Game 1, you had Kawhi Leonard dominate. Okay, he actually had a good game in Game 1. Game 2, Kyle Lowry had 30 fucking points. Pascal Siakam had like 15 points. Some shit like that. Did not play better than Chris Middleton that game. But we already know, coming into the fourth quarter, everyone else on the Raptors was inconsistent. But coming into the fourth quarter, the Raptors completely gave up the fucking game. And they choked. Them niggas choked. In Game 1, Kawhi Leonard only had 2 points in the fourth quarter. 2 fucking points. And in the last like 3 minutes of the game, they didn't score anything. Okay, they basically did not score anything while Brook Lopez was dominating with his versatility. It is just crazy. And Giannis Antetokounmpo also picked it up in the second half. Everyone picked it up in the fucking second half, my nigga. And they picked it up in the second half, continued to dominate, and they won game 1 of that shit. Which is a game the Raptors should have won. But they had another fourth quarter collapse, and they exposed their own inconsistencies and the fact that their players cannot step up. Where was Van leading the fourth quarter? It was just Kyle Lowry. That was it. It was just Kyle Lowry scoring in the fourth quarter. Kawhi Leonard even fucking choked. So it was just ridiculous. We already know the Raptors should have won that game. It's just fucking crazy. But it's crazy that the game that Kyle Lowry actually shows up and has 30 fucking points is the game that you lost. So it was obviously a demoralizing fucking loss, and the Bucks just picked it up in the second half. But we already know, coming into game 2, I still predicted this shit. I still predicted the fucking the Raptors to come in and tie the series in game 2, because I predicted the Bucks to win by 25, even though it was closer than expected. You had a game 2, which was a pathetic fucking performance by the Toronto Raptors, getting blown out like 102 to 123 or some shit like that. You had Kawhi Leonard was literally the only one doing shit. Okay, he was literally the only one doing shit, and the players fired out the fucking game. They fired out the game, dominating in game 2. Giannis Antetokounmpo actually shows up throughout the entirety of the game, which is literally yet to be proven. A game where this entire playoffs, where the Bucks have not lost a series this entire playoffs, where Giannis Antetokounmpo dominates for all 48 minutes of the game. So no need to even fucking expand on that shit, okay? They just pretty much blew them out in the first quarter. They tried to make it a fucking close game, close competitive game, but the Bucks kept on firing, okay? They kept on firing out the gate. You had them playing great inconsistently all throughout with fucking Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe. You had fucking, what's that nigga's name? George Hill even. You had this motherfucker Mirotic and Ilyasova coming in, hitting threes, supposed to be fucking bench warmers, supposed to be players that play less than 20-something minutes in the game. Still coming in, dominating, playing way more consistently in the bench. And you have Marc Gasol doing nothing. You had fucking Serge Ibaka not showing up the way that he needed to. Danny Green not doing shit. It was just a terrible fucking game, and they just pretty much gave it up in the second half. I damn near fell asleep in the fucking second half of the game because this shit was already over. So, I don't know what the fuck happened to the Raptors in game 2. It was just a pathetic fucking performance all throughout, and they knew they had to fucking step up in order to win game 3. But we're coming into game 3, okay, which we have a lot of fucking shit to talk about in game 3. So we already know game 1 and 2, the Bucks obviously dominated throughout the entire time, proving my entire point of how I thought the Bucks were going to win this series. But we already know, coming into game 3 in this shit, okay, coming into the game 3 in this shit, the Raptors finally came in and played with a fucking sense of urgency. They actually came in, they played with a lot of sense of urgency. They made massive defensive adjustments, and huge shout out to this nigga Kawhi Leonard, okay, even though he choked in game 1, huge shout out to this nigga Kawhi Leonard, especially with this perimeter defense, because the way that he guarded Giannis Antetokounmpo, Giannis only had 12 points. I think there was a point in the game where this nigga only had 6 points and 6 turnovers and some shit like that. He had a terrible fucking first half. But the thing is that the Bucks, their fucking team is so good that even when, and this is something that I didn't think of, even when the Bucks are not playing that well, when Giannis is not playing that well, the bench still comes in and shows up, okay? The team basically still comes in and shows up and steps up to the point where you're basically playing a game without Giannis Antetokounmpo. You know what I'm saying? Or at least Giannis Antetokounmpo not playing to the same extent, basically being non-existent throughout the first half. And the Bucks were still able to maintain that shit. It went to double overtime. They were still able to maintain a legitimate lead throughout the, well, not a legitimate lead. They barely had a lead the entire game. But they still were able to keep the game close throughout the majority of the fucking game. It was always a 5-point game, and they kept on hitting threes. You had this motherfucker Mirotic completely stepping up. You had fucking Ilyasova coming in, stepping up. George Hill, who, surprisingly, a player that came off of the fucking bench, supposed to not play any more minutes than Van Leet or some shit like that on the Toronto Raptors, coming in, dropping 21 fucking points throughout the entire game, hitting a bunch of 3-point shots, hitting clutch 3-point shots in overtime. Chris Middleton continuing to step up his fucking role, playing great offensively and defensively. Brook Lopez, you definitely had significant contributions from him, but you had the fucking Toronto Raptors, of course, playing with a bigger sense of urgency, but of course, Kyle Lowry wasn't going to step up the way that he obviously did in game 1. Kawhi Leonard, this nigga Kawhi Leonard apparently sprained his ankle or some shit like that in the first half. I don't know what the fuck happened there, but he still came in and he still dominated with 32 fucking points. So they were still playing great, okay? And Siakam kind of stepped up. But we already know, coming in near the end of the fourth quarter, and Marc Gasol, you know what I'm saying? This motherfucker, Marc Gasol, actually came in and played even better defensively and started hitting threes. So they were playing with a big sense of urgency. And you have this motherfucker Norman Powell. Because in order for the Raptors to win this series, you have to utilize your fucking role players that usually don't step up that much, and you have to make them play a lot more minutes to deal with the fucking depth of the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, you know what I'm saying, having the best bench in the league, and they're continuing to prove it. So, you had this motherfucker Norman Powell coming in with 16 points at the end of the first half. Dominating. You know what I'm saying? This nigga's out here dominating. So, it was just a great game, but we already know, coming in, it was literally the fourth quarter. the Bucks still maintained that shit. They still kept it a close game. Despite this motherfucker but despite Giannis not even being anywhere to be found, completely getting into foul trouble. There was a lot of fucking players in Game 3 who were in foul trouble. You had this motherfucker, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kyle Lowry. I think Chris Middleton or Eric Bledsoe or some shit like that. Even though Eric Bledsoe, even he's not even playing that good this series, they're still able to keep it close. And you had fucking Eric Bledsoe or something like that. They were all in fucking foul trouble. Marc Gasol was in foul trouble. They all had like 5 fouls. A tough, aggressive fucking game. But we already know, coming in, and this is one of the big concerns that I have for the Raptors, is that coming into the fucking fourth quarter, not only did you almost lose a goddamn game, and it took 2 fucking overtimes to beat a team where Giannis was playing like shit. Even though Giannis had an amazing game on the boards, he had like 23 rebounds, some shit like that, but offensively he wasn't producing, you had a chance to fucking win. In regulation. Playing against the fucking team where Giannis isn't showing up. You know what I'm saying? And you still almost lost that shit. And it was obviously because of Pascal Siakam, which he had a great game, you know what I'm saying? He had a clutch-ass block in the second overtime, but in regulation, my nigga. Okay, they had great defense, but their offense isn't as good as the Bucks. Even without Giannis, which is actually a big concerning thing. But even in regulation, my nigga, this nigga Pascal Siakam, after they were getting intentionally fouled, Pascal Siakam misses back-to-back free throws. You know what I'm saying? Causing Chris Middleton to come in and hit like a fucking layup or something like that, and he missed it, and then he just got the shit back up, and he got his own offensive rebound, laying it up, forcing the game into overtime. It was just crazy. So this nigga Pascal Siakam made me think he even missed another free throw before that shit. So he literally missed 3 straight free throws in the end of the fourth quarter, causing it to go to overtime. It goes into overtime, and it looked like, okay, because Kawhi Leonard was obviously clutching overtime, getting amazing still, which is getting huge shout out to his perimeter defense, still dominating. Even when he can barely even utilize his footwork with his defense, he's still coming in and stealing the ball and getting fast break points. But in overtime, it literally looked like there was points where the fucking Raptors up like 4, maybe 6 points, with like less than 2 minutes left in the overtime, and you thought that the Bucks were going to lose this shit, but they still climbed back, and this nigga George Hill was clutch as fuck. He was coming in hitting 3-point shots, Mirotic coming in hitting 3-point shots, still dominating, coming in down low, dominating with the low post play. You had this nigga Serge Ibaka, can't stop the motherfuckers. So you had an amazing fucking run, still keeping it close in the first overtime, and you made it a fucking clutch ass game. Okay, you made it a clutch ass game, forcing it to second overtime, and it goes into double overtime. This nigga Giannis Antetokounmpo fouls out, Kyle Lowry fouls out. All these motherfuckers are on the fucking bench, and you have Kawhi Leonard still coming in the second overtime, getting another fucking clutch steal, you know what I'm saying, getting another fast break point, and they finally fucking win that shit, okay? They finally fucking win that shit, and we already know they won because of intentional free throws at the end of that shit, so it was just fucking crazy. It was literally a crazy-ass fucking game, went to double overtimes, but we already know the Raptors barely won that shit by 6 games. Now, what I have to say about this series is that this fucking game is that it is not, okay, I have to say, even though it was a great second overtime game, it was not a great performance by the Toronto Raptors, okay? Not a great performance by the Toronto Raptors because of the fact that you're literally, and that's the main fucking thing, you literally took 2 overtimes just to beat a team where Giannis Antetokounmpo isn't showing up. It took you 2 overtimes to do that shit. With Kawhi Leonard being clutch, playing great defense, being consistent throughout the game, maybe except for the second quarter, some shit where he got injured. That's it. You know what I'm saying? You had all these players stepping up. Pretty much everyone on the damn team stepped up. If they didn't step up offensively, they stepped up defensively. You know what I'm saying? You had plenty of players step up offensively. So you had all these players showing up. Your entire team was doing what it needed to do, playing against the Bucks team, where Giannis is not playing good at all. And you still almost lose that shit. You still almost lose that shit. That's actually really fucking concerning for the rest of the series. And what I thought, okay, you might niggas might not believe me or some shit, but what I thought before the fucking game 3 started, I literally thought that the Bucks, I don't see the Bucks losing 2 straight on the road this entire series. So I'm saying it right the fuck now. I don't see Giannis Antetokounmpo having 2 straight bad games. So all I have to say is that if Giannis comes in and shows up, it doesn't even have to be Eric Bledsoe showing up because he hasn't been, he didn't show up to the extent that he's supposed to. This nigga, if Giannis Antetokounmpo just has to come in and play like MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, hopefully your defensive adjustment can stop this shit because I want to see a 7-game series. But I don't see Giannis not dominating next game. So if Giannis comes in and plays better, didn't play like shit like he did this game, only had 12 points and 7 turnovers and 23 rebounds obviously, but that's it. If that shit doesn't happen, if he just comes in and drops 25 points at least next game, I see the Bucks taking a 3-1 lead. So that's all I have to say about this shit. Tell me in the comment section. Just a mid-series review. I honestly see the Bucks winning the series in 5 games, but hopefully it goes 7. And I'm still maintaining my prediction to 7 games. Anyway, it's your boy, Mr.Sauceman. I'm checking the fucking narrative. Peace.